John Stuart Mill, a 19th century philosopher, profoundly impacted political and ethical thought. He championed individual liberty and advocated for social justice. Mill's utilitarianism, a moral philosophy, guides us toward actions that maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. It's a theory focused on consequences. Actions are judged as right or wrong based on their outcomes. Mill believed in striving for the greatest happiness principle. This principle suggests that we should always aim for the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Mill's utilitarianism wasn't just about maximizing pleasure in a simple sense. He delved deeper, distinguishing between different types of pleasure. It acknowledged that not all pleasures are created equal. Beyond the balance sheet, Mill versus Bentham. Jeremy Bentham, another influential thinker, laid the groundwork for utilitarianism. He believed in a straightforward calculation of pleasure and pain. Bentham argued that an action is good if it produces more pleasure than pain for the majority. While Mill agreed with the basic principles of Bentham's utilitarianism, he also saw its limitations. Mill believed that Bentham's approach was too simplistic. He argued that it failed to consider the quality of happiness. Bentham's theory treated all pleasures as equal, whether they were derived from reading poetry or indulging in gluttony. Mill, in contrast, believed in a hierarchy of pleasures. He argued that intellectual and moral pleasures were superior to purely physical ones. For Mill, reading a thought-provoking book was a higher pleasure than simply eating a candy bar.
Differentiating pleasures. Imagine spending a day lost in a captivating novel. Now, imagine spending that same day indulging in an excessive amount of junk food. Both activities might bring pleasure, but the quality of that pleasure differs significantly. This is the crux of Mill's distinction between higher and lower pleasures. Higher pleasures, according to Mill, engage our higher faculties. These are pleasures derived from intellectual pursuits, artistic appreciation, and moral acts. They are more enduring and contribute to our overall well-being. Lower pleasures, on the other hand, are fleeting and often based on sensory gratification. These include pleasures derived from eating, drinking, and sexual activity. They are not inherently bad, but they are not as fulfilling as higher pleasures. Mill argued, "It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied." Section 4. Freedom's boundaries, the harm principle. Mill firmly believed in individual liberty. He argued that people should be free to live their lives as they see fit, as long as they do not harm others. This idea is enshrined in what we now call the harm principle. The harm principle states that the only justification for limiting an individual's freedom is to prevent harm to others. For example, you are free to express your opinions no matter how unpopular they may be. However, you are not free to incite violence or make threats against others. Your freedom ends where another person's safety begins. Mill's harm principle has had a profound impact on legal and political systems around the world. It serves as a cornerstone of liberal democracy, emphasizing the importance of individual rights.
Section 5. Rules for the greater good. Imagine having to calculate the consequences of every single action, every single time. It would be exhausting and impractical. This is where rule utilitarianism comes in. Rule utilitarianism is a form of utilitarianism that emphasizes the importance of following rules. Instead of evaluating individual actions in isolation, rule utilitarians focus on the overall consequences of following certain rules. For example, we generally agree that it's wrong to steal. A rule utilitarian would argue that this rule exists because it promotes greater happiness in the long run. If everyone followed this rule, society would be more stable and prosperous. Of course, there might be rare exceptions. But in general, following the rule against stealing leads to more happiness than unhappiness. Rule utilitarianism provides a more practical framework for making moral decisions in everyday life. Section 6. A critical evaluation of Mill's utilitarianism. In this chapter, we will critically evaluate John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism. One of the key strengths of Mill's utilitarianism is its flexibility. By differentiating between higher and lower pleasures, Mill's approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of human happiness. This addresses some of the criticisms leveled against Bentham's more simplistic hedonistic calculus. However, this very differentiation also brings about challenges. Critics argue that the distinction between higher and lower pleasures can be subjective, making it difficult to apply consistently. Additionally, the emphasis on intellectual and moral pleasures might marginalize those who find fulfillment in simpler, more immediate gratifications. The harm principle is another significant aspect of Mill's philosophy. It offers a clear guideline for limiting individual freedom only when one's actions cause harm to others. While this principle is lauded for its clarity and respect for personal liberty, it can be difficult to define what constitutes harm, leading to potential ambiguities in application.